Welcome back everyone to the Crafty Yellow Camper, and today we're going to talk about whales. This is one of the sets that's available in the new annual catalogue. It's called Whale Done. I'm not normally one for sets that have a bit of a pun in them because I think they're a bit twee, but I know a lot of people like them. But I actually really love the images in this set, so whilst I might not use all of the sentiments, the images definitely will get a lot of love. So this is the stamp set. It comes with the image of the whale, a turtle, a jellyfish, little diddy seahorse, so cute, some coral, some seaweed, some bubbles, a little heart and a little shoal of fishes. And the greetings, you've got thanks a ton, whale done, my love for you is bigger than the ocean, you're kind of a big deal, hoping all your birthday fishes come true. So every time I see that, my love for you is bigger than the ocean, it makes me think of a Diana Ross song. Okay, right, so these are the stamps. They're photopolymer, so they're clear, you can see through them, which makes them nice and easy to mount. Also in the suite, there's this gorgeous 6x6 paper pack, which I think I showed you when I did my catalogue unboxing. So I'll just give you a quick flick through so you can see. I think there's 4 sheets of each, and it is called Whale of a Time, and these are the backs. So they're all really, really lovely papers, which will come in handy for a multitude of things, not just use them with this set. So some really, really lovely papers in there. Okay, the other thing that comes as part of this suite is the punch. So there aren't any dies for this, but there is this punch. Now, I know we don't sell quite as many punches as we used to sell when I first started as a Stampin' Up demonstrator. It has moved a lot more onto dies, but the punches are really handy. They're really simple to use. You can use them either way up if you've got some mobility issues. I'll talk about that in a second. And they're not that big. So if you're crafting on the go, which I quite often am, when I'm crafting in my camper, then obviously this takes up a whole lot less room than a die cutting machine does. So yeah, so that's it. So our punches arrive closed. They look like that. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, and to undo them, what we do is we slide this switch on the back towards us, and that releases it. I can see now that punch is, oh sorry, that punch is open. You'll have to excuse me, I've got a new camera arm, and I'm just getting used to it, but I can actually see what I'm doing now, so hopefully everything should be in shot. Okay, so that's the punch. These are the bits and pieces. I'm just going to lay these on a piece of dark coloured card so you can see. These are what they actually punch out. So you've got the whale image, and then you've got these pieces of sort of seaweed that punch out from the punch as well. This tiny little piece here, and this, excuse me, I have to lick my finger to pick it up, this tiny little eye, which is the right size for the whale. Okay, now obviously if you've stamped him, there is an eye on there. One thing I did just want to show you with the punches like these ones, where there are multiple pieces around the central image, when you're stamping your whales, you need to be, or any of our other images with extra bits, you need to make sure that you stamp far enough apart. So just to show you, on this one I stamped this whale from there, which I've punched out, and then I went and stamped off to get a second generation stamp, which is actually quite nice for an under the sea thing. But when I went to punch it, obviously you'll see that the weed that is around the top of the image then encroached into my second whale that I'd stamped. So just be aware of that and leave enough room. So instead of stamping too close together like that, I should have really had them sort of probably that far apart. So just something to bear in mind when you're using punches. Okay, let's just set these to one side. Okay, there is also in this suite, there is some really lovely sort of aqua, I guess it's Coastal Cabana, ribbon, and there are some sequins as well, but I'm not going to use those right now. So I've started with a piece of Misty Moonlight, and we're going to make 2 cards with this stamp set. I'm going to show you 2 different ways to use it. So the first way we're going to use is onto a piece of cardstock as a matte layer. Oh, I brought it over here. What did I do with it? Okay. Right, not sure where I've put that, so that will turn up. So I'll just grab another piece. Another little tip for you, if you've when you're making cards, if you're going to use a white layer, either inside your card or on the front of your card. It's often a good idea to cut more than one at a time. We obviously are in England, in the UK, our paper comes in A4 sheets, and this is just slightly smaller than a quarter of an A4 sheet. So rather than just cut one and then have random bits of A4 that aren't A4 laying around, I tend to cut 4 straight away from a sheet. And in fact, I make so many cards I tend to bulk cut them, especially if you're going to do the front and the inside, which on a colour like Misty Moonlight you would then want to also put a panel inside your card for writing on. Okay, so for on this card we are going to use this panel. So to start with, we are going to build up the image. So I've got out some of our new ink colours. The ink pads are now available. The ink pads are available, the Stampin' Up markers, which are these pens. These are also water-based, the same as our ink pads. They're available. Unfortunately, the re-inkers aren't available at the moment. It's all to do with customs issues and the ingredients basically in them and where they're manufactured. So hopefully they will be available soon. So at the moment in the ink colours, you can get the full-size ink pads, the Stampin' Up markers. I think some of them, if I remember rightly, are available in blends. Obviously, you can get the A4 and 12 by 12 cardstock, and the ribbons, the in colour ribbons. So lots and lots of lovely new colours. So we are going to make this a tent-fold card. So I've cut a piece of UK sized A4 in half down the middle, so that's cut at 10.5 centimetres. Obviously, if you're in the States or one of the countries that has different size cardstock to us, it's straight down the middle, and I've folded it halfway through, which gives us a tent-fold card. Okay, so we're going to be working on the panel in a portrait setting, not a landscape setting. So what I'm going to do first of all is start with some of the seaweed to go around the edge, and this is the biggest image in the stamp set, and I'm using Just Jade. I'm just going to have to turn it sideways so I can see what I'm doing, and all I'm going to do is stamp that, but then what I'm going to do is go back on top of it and stamp as a second generation second generation stamp, which gives you a much lighter colour. It's actually quite nice for an under the water effect, and I've put it next to it there, but you can just layer up on top like that. So we'll pop that one to one side. What else did I get out? Oh, I've got the other very small weed, and you might notice I've got 2 stamps on one block here, but that's just because I'm being lazy and haven't got my other blocks out. And if you're careful, you can make sure that you stamp with without getting it on the other image on the block, like I've just done there. So we've got some seaweed along there. What else did we have? So right, we're going to put our Just Jade away for a moment, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab in some Coastal Cabana. Now I want to lighten this background up a bit because it's going to be on quite a dark card. So what I'm actually going to do is go in with a barber's brush. You can actually buy these specifically for craft, but I actually found it was cheaper to buy these on the internet as a barber's brush. So they're what men would usually use for a wet shave. But you can ink it up and just give it a swirl around. Now, this is, some of you might be sitting there thinking, well, why aren't you using a sponge? But the barber's brush gives you a much paler, more delicate effect than a sponge. If you use a sponge, you will get a lot heavier effect, and that's not what I'm after here. I just want to take off the whiteness of the background. So just by going over with the barber's brush, and these can just be rinsed out under the tap. Obviously our normal ink pads are water soluble, so just rinsing this out under the tap and leave it to dry, and it will come up nice and fluffy again. Okay, so can you see that's just taken off the whiteness? So that's the other side, which is very white, and that's just taken off that whiteness and just given it that sort of bluey green tinge, which is what I wanted to do. I didn't want to have it too heavy on that. And then just to give a little bit of definition around the edges, I'm just going to come in with another brush. And this time I've got Bermuda Bay, and we just want to have a sort of, you know, as if we're looking underwater effect. So this time I'm just going to go very carefully. See, this is made it a bit darker because obviously it's a darker colour. I'm just going to go very carefully around the edges. I don't want to go all over the piece of cardstock. There we go. So that's just brought that all in a bit more and given us a bit more of a focal point in the middle. So I'm going to pop that one back now. I'll pop those brushes to one side and I'll give those a rinse. If you'll just excuse me for a second, I'm just going to grab a wipe. I would normally use my chamois, but it needs rinsing. So I'm just going to grab a wipe and I'm just going to take that ink off my mat, which needs cleaning as well. I always end up with sticky stuff on my mat. This is a laminated piece of grid paper. This is a fancy bit that I got at convention, but we do actually sell pads of the grid paper if any of you need a little bit of help with lining stuff up. And actually, to get the sticky stuff off, I go over it with rubbing alcohol or surgical spirit, as it's called in the UK. So you can see that's taken quite a lot of colour off there, so we're just going to pop that to one side. Okay, just give that a few minutes just to dry off, and then we can put our cardstock down again. So I want to use some of the other images in the... Yeah, that's the only trouble with wiping it with a wipe. It does make it a little bit damp, and I've usually got a bit of kitchen towel sitting around waiting to be used, but I seem to not have, so I'm just gonna grab a piece of scrap cardboard out of my bin that's down by my feet and just give that a wipe over, and you can see I'm still picking up ink on that, but it's taken the wet off the mat. There we go. So was already in the bin anyway. Okay, so I'm going to go in. I'd like to have the jellyfish, and I'd like to have a little seahorse and the little shoal of fishes. Now, jellyfish are opaque, aren't they? So that's a little bit difficult to do, but the way to get around that is to heat emboss it. So we'll leave that one till last. We've used the weed, so I'm just going to pull that weed off there and put that on my other block, which we've already used to go off for cleaning. Okay, so I think what we're going to do next is do the little shoal of fish, and I'm trying to show you here some of the new ink colours, and I just realised I've got one I haven't stuck the label on the front. It's very remiss of me. Okay, so we're just going to go in with these little shoal of fishes, and I don't want them to be as dark blue as the whale that I've stamped and already punched, so I'm just going to grab a piece of scrap paper and I'm just going to stamp off and then stamp them onto my card. Oh, I've got a splot on there. That's the only trouble with these little stamps, that you do have to be careful not to press them too hard into the ink pad, because they tend to pick up ink in between. You can see, if I bring that right up to the camera, you can see that they've picked up ink in between, but that will be fine. It's under the sea, so I'll just take that off the page so it looks like they're swimming into view. Okay, and then I've got the coral. Now, coral comes in an amazing range of colours, but I've decided that we're going to have some pink coral. So this is the Magenta Madness. Now, I don't know how pink this is going to be, so I'm just going to stamp it off onto my piece of scrap paper, and that is extremely pink. Let's see. Yeah, I think I like it better once it's been stamped off. So we'll lightly ink it, be very gentle with these detailed stamps, and then we're just gonna put some coral coming in there, and you can see I've stamped it off on my paper, then I've stamped it again, and stamped it again, which just gives it a little bit more subtle. So technically that was first stamp, that's second generation, third and fourth, so it just gives it that little, adds that little bit of colour into there. So at this point we've got our whale. Actually, I'm not going to fight with that one, I'm on camera. We've got our whale that I just stamped and punched out earlier, and we just want to offer him up and see where he needs to go. So we don't want to fill in too much space, we need to leave enough room for him. And then I think I want to use, this is a thank you card for a customer. customer who has ordered through me via the internet. It's not a lady that I've met before. Hopefully I might meet her in the future. And she wanted to order from Stampin' Up and went online and found that I was a demonstrator, and she lives near me, and she very kindly put me down as her demonstrator. So I thought it was the least I can do to send her a thank you. So we're going to go a bit pink with that again, just to echo the coral, and we're going to pop that up there. Hopefully that's level. I don't want to get my head in the screen so you can see. And yeah, I think that will do. So what we will do is we will put some adhesive on the back. I'm using up my snail. We don't sell snail anymore. We've got a new oh, I think I might have just used it up. We've got a new tape runner. Please do excuse me for a second while I go to my drawer and I can tell you all about the new tape. Where did I put it? Oh, it's right in front of me. I didn't need to get up at all. So, just digressing slightly, these are our new tape runners. This is the Stamp and Seal, or Stampin' Seal, which is the equivalent of the snail that we used to sell, and this is the Stampin' Seal Plus, which basically takes the place of the red liner tape. You know that tape that nobody can ever get the backing off? Yeah, well, you don't need it anymore. I've got this. So they come in these packets. Now, I'm not a lover of plastic, I have to say. I can sort of see why they're in these packets. I sort of rather wish that it was something that could be recycled, but you never know. Maybe Stampin' Up will do that. But the reason they're in these plastic packets is because, let me just take it out and I can show you, they are resealable. So you can just do like a press and seal and then it's done up. So if you craft on the go and you're one of these people that tends to lose the cap off the end, naming no names, but I know exactly what that's like, then keep the bag. Okay, so now this one is nice and easy to roll. It's clear and nice and tacky. Okay, it does come with refills. It's not that disposable, so thank you Stampin' Up for that. It's not a one-use plastic case. Same with the snail. We have refills and you take the case apart. With the, I'm not doing a very good job of lining this up, am I? Because I don't want to get my head in shot. There we go. So with the old snail, and we'll show you because I have to take this one apart, the whole thing, whole front comes off, and that is what you throw away, which is actually quite a lot of plastic. I'm just going to put that out of the way. And that's what you get left with, and the new refill used to get clicked into there. With this one, what you do is you hold it on both sides. Do excuse me, my hands are rubbish at this kind of stuff. And pull it apart like that. Remember to take the cap off, otherwise you won't be able to pull it apart. So it comes apart and it comes into two separate pieces, and this lifts out. I'm not going to take it out now because I don't want to faff about trying to get it back together. But this lifts out, and so these front and back of the case are both reusable. It's just the innards, so it's a lot less plastic that we're throwing away. The other thing that is just something to mention is that the Stampin' Seal Plus is exactly the same outer case. It's just the middle is the same size and everything. It's just the adhesive on the roll that's different. So if you are a person that has a very small craft bag and doesn't like to carry too much stuff, you could carry around one of these, which you'd use more often, and then for 3D boxes and stuff like that, you could carry a refill for the Stampin' Seal Plus and swap it over. Again, that's where the reusable bag comes in really handy. So you can see that's stuck that on there, hopefully. Oh, actually, I haven't done too bad a job. Okay, on that, so that's that. And we need to obviously put our whale on. So I am going to use a couple of dimensionals to stick him on. So we've got our sentiment, thanks a ton. It's always polite to thank somebody when they've taken the time and trouble to spend their money with me. Okay. And he is going to pop in there. For those of you that I do see on a regular basis when I'm dropping off your at the moment, cards in the post, kits, or if I see you at my classes, I have got a little thank you for you for shopping with me as well. Not a card with a whale on it, but I have got a new colour coach for you, which is the previous 5 in colours, which is still current, and the new 5 in colours. So a colour coach, I will just show you briefly. This one I haven't cut up, and it's really badly printed, so this is a duff that I'm using, but basically it's a small card. It's got the name of one of the stamps. I don't know if you can see that on the Pretty Peacock one. It's got the name of one of our in colours on it, and then it's got suggestions of other colours that it blends really well with. And I have got some printed out and cut up for those of my ladies that shop with me regularly as a thank you. So those will be coming through with your next orders. Or for those of you that haven't ordered from me lately, when you place an order, I'll be popping one of those in with your order. So that's our first card done, and that is using the piece of Whisper White. We're just going to finish that card off nicely so that when I go to send it, I know that it's all done. So I'm just grabbing another piece of Whisper White here. Now, sometimes in my classes, my ladies stick their piece of Whisper White inside before they stamp on it inside, and then find they make a boo-boo. So don't do that. So what we're going to do this time is we are going to use, what should we use? I think we'll use our little jellyfish actually. We'll go for a nice neutral colour for him. I'm going to grab soft sea foam. And we're just going to pop him. It's a really, really pale green. It's a lovely colour. It's one of my favourites. We're just going to pop him in that corner there. There we go. Doesn't he look nice? There we go. Beautiful little image. And he'll just be a little bit of something inside, just to decorate the inside. And I would normally stamp the thanks a ton in there, but because this is going out to a customer that I haven't actually met before, I want to add some information in there, business card, and write a slightly longer note in there so she knows who I am and doesn't think I'm just some random person putting a card through her door. So that's why there's no greeting in there this time, because I need to leave a bit more space. Okay, so I'm going to put that in there. I've just realised I've got ink, but that's fine because I'll be writing over that. So that is card number 1. Okay, so for card number 2, what we're going to do is we're going to use a piece of Misty Moonlight again. It's a really nice blue. It sort of reminds me a little bit of the old Dapper Denim that we used to have. It's not quite Blueberry Bushel, and it's not Night of Navy. It's, yeah, it does remind me of Dapper Denim, which was one of my favourite colours as well. So this time we've got half of an A4 sheet going widthways. So this is cut at 14.8 centimetres. Okay, for those of you that are interested, my matte layers are 14.3 that way by 10 centimetres, and the card when folded is 14.8 by 10.5. Okay, I had to think about that for a minute. So on this one, we're actually going to use a piece of this lovely designer series paper. So I've pulled a piece out already. So on one side, it's got this sort of tangle of weeds, which would make a really lovely background with some whales swimming on it. But the side I'm going to use is this side, which is really cute with some very fine seaweed and these little shoal of fishes. So I just need to grab my trimmer, and we need to cut that down to fit the front of the card. So let's see who was paying attention. What size does it need to be? It needs to be 10 by 14.3. I don't know what that is in old money. I tend to muddle my metrics and imperials a bit whenever to make it work for me. Right, I'm just going to put my trimmer back up on its hook so I don't knock it on the floor and make a huge noise. There we go. And I obviously didn't cut this down, did I, this piece of card? See what I mean about having random pieces of card left in your drawers? Right, so let's just trim this down to 14.8. Yes, I must have cut a piece off this to use for another card. Only a little tiny bit, but it doesn't make a difference. So, right, that should now mat on there nicely. I must have just cut a sneaky section off that for something else. Right, okay, yep, that's better. So we've got this lovely seaweed on the back. So this is the way to make a really quick card, because obviously there's not a lot of stamping. We did a bit more stamping, some ink blending and what have you on the other one. On this one, makes a really quick card. We'll save those pieces for later because I hate waste. You never know when you're going to need a tiny little piece of paper with fishes swimming on it. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and stick this down. What's going on here? There's no need for that silly tick nonsense with these new trimmers. It's quite nice to hold as well. It's sort of got those finger grips, and I've got really little hands and sometimes I struggle with big things. I was a bit worried about the size of this when you compare it to the size of a snail. You can see that, but it's actually really nice to hold. Okay, I'm all tacky now. So let's pick this up. Obviously open your card front out, makes it way easier to line your cardstock or paper up because it's not bouncing around. So we're just going to lay that on there. Now that in itself would be nice just with a punched label and a whale. You know, don't really need much more than that. So this one is going to be for one of the little lads that I look after. I'm going to lose the lid off that really easily, aren't I, if I don't put it back on. For one of the little boys that I look after, and he's got a birthday coming up soon, so I thought he would like this. So we are going to use a birthday greeting. Now the birthday greeting in this set is hoping all your birthday fishes come true. So obviously that's why I've gone for the fish paper, and we are going to use the whale again. What we're going to do this time, put it on a bigger block. What we're going to do this time is I'm going to show you how to blend him in some different colours. So we're going to grab out of the Stampin' Up markers. These are really handy for, if you're stamping on the go, you don't necessarily want to have one of these big ink pads. You've got 5 colours in there. So if you look on our Stampin' Up markers, hopefully you can see that. Oh, sorry, I just knocked the camera. We've got a fine tipped end and a brush tip end. So I'm just going to get the brush tip end, and I am going to colour. If you hold your pen sideways rather than pointy, I'm just going to colour over Mr. Whale with the pen. Now, I know I could have inked this, but I just thought it would be handy to show you. So we're just going to touch on those bits there, just to get the edge of the whale in. Okay, I'm going to bring in a piece of scrap. Now, if you use this technique, you need to huff on it. So, because the ink will start to dry on the stamp. So, if you huff on it, let's put him down there. And then stamp him. Okay, he's a little bit blotchy there, but I've done that on purpose because I wanted to go in with another colour of blue. So that's Misty Moonlight, and I'm just reaching for some other in colour pens. And these are, oh, these are old ones, 2018 to 20, so these have just retired. So I'm being a bit naughty using these, but I just wanted to show you the difference in colour. So this must be Blueberry Bushel. Yes, it is Blueberry Bushel. Okay. I would normally have used the other set of pens, but there isn't a blue in them. Okay. Obviously, whales don't have to be blue, do they? But today they are. Okay, so I'm just going to pop those back up there. Now, the thing about photopolymer, and please excuse me if you get my hair in the shot, is that you can line them up. And again, I know you can do this on a Stamparatus, but again, less kit if you're traveling. Just slide that up. There, you can see that I've managed to go back over him exactly, and that's actually darkened him down quite a lot. So, just to show you how you can use the Stampin' Up markers, if you wanted to go multicoloured, Let's just clean him off a bit. I'm just going to grab my chamois. It's really filthy. It needs a clean, but it'll do for doing this. Okay. So you could do one layer of colour and then do another one using the ink pad. But if we wanted to do a paler one, we're going to go in. These are the other ink colours. So we've got Pretty Peacock, Purple Posy, Seaside Spray, Rococo Rose and Terracotta Tile. So I'm going to go in with this really pale Seaside Spray. Just looking for the blend edge, and I'm just going to go around the top of the whale before I work my way down to the bottom, and you can barely see any colour on the stamp. Even I can barely see any colour on the stamp, and I'm right over the top of him. And then we're just going to go back in with our Misty Moonlight, and we're going to go round the edges where the shadow would get him. A little bit on his tail. You'll have to excuse me because I'm playing here. It may not work. And then we're just going to go around the top. Just to give him some definition. Around this side here. Okay, let's see what happens. So, give it a huff and press him down. Just give it a minute for the ink to soak into the paper. And there you go, you can see you've got him in two different colours. Now it's not very well done because I've literally just done it on film. But what we could do is go back over that again with our lighter colour. Obviously, if you're doing different shades of colour, use the lighter one first and then go in with the dark. So again, we can line it up with being able to see through the stamp. There we go, that's better. I wanted him to have a little bit more of a watery effect. Okay, so we're going to come in with our punch. I'm going to punch out the darker one first. So we just slide in your piece of cardstock, line it up with the punch. Now, if you squeeze the punch ever so slightly, it will hold it in place, but it won't cut. So if you're not sure if you've got it lined up, just hold it a little bit tighter, but don't squeeze until you're right ready, and then give it a squeeze. Okay, and you can see those bits have come out as well. Now, the other thing that I should have said is if you are stamping at the top, you're going to have to cut to get into that. So I'm just going to trim off this piece of card. We're done with this piece, so we're just going to get rid of that. Don't tear it, otherwise you might tear into your image. So we can flick that piece out of the way now, and we can get in to where our whale is and line him up. Okay, I think that's it. Again, hold it, turn it around and check. Yep, that'll do. Okay, so I'm just going to put that piece of scrap to one side and brush off all these little bits of seaweed because they're the wrong colour. We don't want those in that. Okay, so you can see we've got our whale. So we could use either, we could use both. But I'm just going to use the pale one for this one. Okay, and I wanted to use the seahorse. There we go. Now he isn't part of the punch, obviously, but I think that if we use first generation stamping, this is where I mess the entire card up, but hopefully, fingers crossed, we won't. I think if we use first generation stamping with the Misty Moonlight ink pad, which comes out a lot darker, we should be able to hide some in the weed. So I'm just going to wipe off the excess around the stamp because I don't want to ruin this lovely paper. So we're just going to stamp him there. Yeah, he does show up. Okay, so we're just going to carefully ink him up again. There we go. That's one. Always put things like this in groups of 3. And did you know that seahorse daddies? give birth to the babies and they look after the babies. There we go. And I think because the greeting says about fishes, I think we need a few more fishes. So we're just going to pop in a shoal of fishes. Again, I'm going to wipe that ink off. I think I've got one in the middle there that's not catching. Right, okay, so we'll just add a few more fishes in there. That'll do nicely. And then we need our whale and we need a greeting. So I am going to bring in the triple banner punch, which we've got, this new punch here. It's got two different styles of banners, or tag toppers if you like, on it. I've got a piece of post-it note here with the sizes of the cardstock. So each design has got these three gullies. Oh, look at the state of my hands. These three gullies, and they take a different width of paper. So what we're going to do is we're going to stamp our greeting that we want to use, which was "May all your birthday fishes come true," or whatever it said. Just going to take that jellyfish off there for a minute so I can use this block. Now, to line your greetings up on your block, if you turn them the right way up, so this where it will stamp is facing down, and then you can put it against the grid paper and then line it up on the block so that you will get it straight. So what we're going to do, we are going to use, I think we'll go for the Just Jade. Oh, another little tip, if you're not sure what colours are actually in your designer series paper when you get it, if you look on the label here, underneath the name, it will give you the colours. So in these papers are Balmy Blue, Blackberry Bliss, Bumblebee, Calypso Coral, Granny Apple Green, Just Jade, Pacific Point, Pool Party, Pretty Peacock, Shaded Spruce and Whisper White. So those are all the colours that feature at some point in this paper, which if you're trying to match something makes it easier to, look how untidy my desk is, makes it easier to work out which colour you need. So looking at this, I think probably it's got most of those colours in it. So because it's on my desk, we're going to go for the Just Jade. And what we're going to do, we're going to stamp this up here somewhere. Hoping all your birthday fishes come true. Okay, we'll just get rid of that out of the way because as you can see, I'm already very mucky. I don't want to make anything else mucky. Right, I'm just going to grab my trimmer. Now, I know that the biggest increment across these tabs is 3/4 of an inch. So I'm just going to trim off a little bit of my cardstock just to get the bulk of that out of the way and even it up a little bit. So let's just take, right, we now know this is a straight edge, so let's take that off there, and then we should hopefully be able to line up, because we've now given us a straight edge there, we should be able to straighten up this top edge without chopping off the greeting. Could have used a bigger bit of paper, would have made life easier for everybody, but anyway. So we've now got a straight edge, so we need to measure it. So it can't be any bigger than 3/4 of an inch, which is going to be there, because otherwise it won't fit in those gullies. So I'm pretty confident that that is going to fit. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take a bit of cardstock off the bottom here. There's probably an easier way to do this, and I'm probably making this a long and laborious job, but anyway, we'll get there. So we need it, yeah, we're almost there. So we need it to be no more than 3/4 of an inch. So we can now cut that down to 3/4 of an inch. Or at least we could if I was able to let go of it and not knock it offline. Okay, so there we go. So we just got that in there. So what I'm going to do, it's a bit close to the top for my liking. So I think it's going to have to go down to the next increment, which is 7/8 of an inch. No, it can't be 7/8 of an inch, can it? Oh yeah, that's the middle increment. We could have done the bigger one. So I've obviously written that down in the wrong order, haven't I? We really wanted 7/8 of an inch. So shall we start again? So let's just make this level here. We'll cut a piece at 7/8 of an inch. That then fits in there. Just get rid of the trimmer. We'll stamp that again. Honestly, any of you watching this are probably ready to slit your wrists at the minute. gone about this in such a laborious manner. Okay, we're gonna and I've smudged it, but we'll do it just so I can show you. Okay, so let's bring the punch in again. Opens at the back. Okay, and then we feed it into whichever end we want. Now this is for a boy's card, so I'm going to feed this in to the squared off edge rather than the more frilly edge. And I don't know if you can see very well with the camera because I've had to put my light on, it's a bit gloomy. So feed it in all the way until it won't go any further and punch. And you can see that's took that edge off there. And then what we're going to do is I'm just going to chop this bit off here because I wasn't sure how long it was going to come out. So it's better to cut it off later. And then we're going to do the same thing again and feed that into there. Okay, so we've got, oh, obviously didn't feed that in very well, did I? Let's try that again. Feed that in as far as it will go. Hold it straight. There we go, that's better. So we've got our sentiment, and true to form, I've covered it in ink because my hands are absolutely filthy. If you're making a card like this, go away and wash your hands. So I'm going to go back to our barber's brush that we had earlier for the other card, and I'm just going to go over, this is often a good tip for hiding splots if they're pale ones. Just going to go back over that with the Bermuda Bay that we used earlier on the other card. There we go, all hidden. Nobody would ever know. Okay, so let's get this card together. So we're going to put some... So don't think just because you've smudged it, oh, I've ruined it, I've got to throw it in the bin. Have a think about the rest of your card and work. There's always a way, or pretty much always a way, to work around that kind of mistake. Okay, so... just got to be careful because I don't want to get ink on the back of the card. So let's just bring in that really filthy baby white, but hopefully it'll get off enough of the ink, and lob that at the bin. And just to be on the safe side, I am going to slide a piece of scrap paper over there so I don't get that all over my card. So make sure you've got the card the right way up. In this case, it's a standard C6. And we know our seahorses are at the top. Okay, so let's put our... This might seem a bit of a weird way to do it, but I sometimes find it's easier to put the greeting on first because then you see what room you've got left for everything else you want to stick on. And I'm going to pop that down there at the bottom. And then the old fingernail trick to get the backs off the dimensionals. And we're going to pop our whale in there. Okay, and then the other thing I think he needs, there was a stamp in the stamp set that is some little bubbles, and obviously he's going to breathe, so I think we need to have some small bubbles. Okay, so just going to clean off a couple of my blocks, and we'll try that whole experiment with the jellyfish. This really is crafting on the go. This card hasn't turned out anything like I intended it to earlier. We've just been playing as we're going. I'm just gonna... If you take your photopolymer stamps off your blocks before you put them back in the case, which obviously I'm not going to bore you with doing that now, don't just put them down on your desk because they'll end up stuck to something else. Take them off and put them on something. So I don't know if you saw, I've just put that onto my top of my punch so I know where they are. Okay. Right, let's get that chamois out of the way. We've got our little bubbles here, and we're just going to put those on the back of the one I've got the octopus on. Jellyfish even, not an octopus. So what I'm going to do this time, I'm just going to reach up for some Versamark ink and some white embossing powder. And I'll make this card a little bit 3D. I've run out of Stampin' Up white embossing powder, so forgive me for using something that isn't Stampin' Up in my videos. Okay, so we've just got the heat gun there. Just going to pop that there so that's handy when we need it. Right, so what we're going to do, we are going to use the bubbles. Don't worry if your Versamark pad looks like this. You can get a re-inker for a Versamark pad, but the colour on it doesn't affect its use. So we are just going to stamp some bubbles above our whale. You should have really a little... I'm surprised he hasn't got like a little fountain in that stamp set, but anyway. Yeah, we will. So we'll have it going up that way because he should really have like a little turret of splashes. And I'm just going to randomly stamp that towards the top of the card, because if you're underwater, obviously it would go up. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to grab a tray, one of these little handy trays. Okay, we're just going to sit him over the tray while I shake on the embossing powder. It just saves it going everywhere. Can give that a little bit of a tap. Right, and I can already see I've pressed that a bit hard, but we will melt it. Let's just move that out of the way so we don't melt that or knock anything else off. So let's just heat gun heat it up a little bit, and we're going to melt it, and hopefully the bubbles should appear. There we go. And you can tell when it's melted, when it changes colour and goes glossy. Try not to overheat it or get the heat gun too close because it will burn the embossing powder. And then I just want to do the same thing with the jellyfish because I think he's really cute. So we are going to do that on the other card. So I'm going to bring that back in. So just get plenty of Versamark on there. We'll take that out of the way. We'll move that card out of the way and we'll bring back in our Thanks a Ton. And what we're going to do is we are going to have him there coming out of the seaweed. Obviously you can't see him at the moment. I can just about see the image because it's clear. Versamark, it's clear tacky ink. So we're going to shake that on, turn it over and give it a flick from behind, and there you go. You can see he's there, but I haven't heated him yet. I'm just going to tip this embossing powder back in. I really like these trays because they're plastic, so they bend a bit. Makes it easy to get your embossing powder back in. They're called a tiny tray. So we'll just get that out of the way, and then we'll bring in our heat gun again, and we'll heat our little jellyfish. And there he goes. You can see the embossing powder changing colour, going white and glossy. There we are. Just make sure we've got him all. That's perfect. There we are. So I'll just bring it back in the other card. So here's our whale with these bubbles and the seahorses. I'm done onto a piece of the lovely DSP, which makes a really quick card. And then this is our card that we did to start with, where we inked the background. We did some second, third and even fourth generation stamping to get lighter shades of the same colour. So if you've only got one ink pad, that's a really good way of getting some difference in colour. We stamped and punched out our whale, and then we've just heat embossed, hopefully you can see that, heat embossed our jellyfish. So they're my two cards for today. I hope you like them, and I'll see you again soon. If you'd like to order any of the products that I've used today, just drop me a line. You can get me on Instagram, Facebook, or on my YouTube channel. If you liked the video, please leave me a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube, and click the bell and subscribe if you haven't already. That's all for now then, so happy stamping, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.